Why can you trade $5,000 with crystal clarity, but turn into a different person, anxious, second-guessing, paralyzed the moment you're risking $50,000? And here's the part that should terrify you. It's not the money. The math is identical. 1% risk is 1% risk, whether you're trading hundreds or hundreds of thousands. So what's actually changing? It's not your strategy. It's not market conditions. Something invisible is hijacking your decision-making the moment the stakes feel real. And until you name it, until you see it clearly, you'll keep hitting the same ceiling, no matter how good your edge is. The secret to scaling isn't in your trading plan. It's in understanding why your brain treats identical risk percentages as life or death decisions based purely on the size of the numbers. Now, you need to understand something right now before we go any further. You're probably sitting here thinking that if you just had better discipline, if you just stuck to your plan more consistently, if you just managed your emotions better, then scaling would be easy. And I'm telling you that this belief, this very reasonable, very logical belief, is the exact thing that's keeping you stuck. Because here's what nobody tells you. The reason you can't scale your trading capital has almost nothing to do with your technical skills. It has everything to do with a psychological mechanism that you don't even know is running in the background of your mind. And this mechanism, it's not a bug, it's a feature. It's something every single human being on this planet carries around. And it's designed to keep you safe. The problem is, what keeps you safe in life will absolutely destroy you in trading when you try to scale. So, what I'm going to do in this video is take you on a journey into the invisible forces that govern your ability to grow capital. Not the ones you read about in trading books, not the ones that show up on your risk management spreadsheet. I'm talking about the deep psychological architecture that determines whether you can hold a $50,000 position with the same calm clarity you had when you held a $500 position. And what you're going to discover is that this isn't about being weak or undisciplined or somehow broken. You're going to learn that you're experiencing something completely predictable, something that can be systematically addressed once you understand what it actually is. Most importantly, you're going to walk away from this video with a completely different framework for understanding what scaling even means and why everything you've been taught about it has been pointing you in the wrong direction. Let me show you where this really lives. I want you to imagine something with me for a second. Imagine you've been lifting a 20-pound weight every day for a year. Your muscles know it. Your nervous system trusts it. You could lift that weight in your sleep. Every fiber of your body has mapped out exactly what 20 pounds feels like. There's no surprise, no uncertainty. Your grip knows the texture of the handle. Your shoulders know the arc of the movement. Your breathing patterns have synchronized with the rhythm of the lift. It's not just familiar. It's part of your body's sense of normal. Now, someone walks up to you and hands you a 200-pound weight and says, "It's the same exercise, just heavier. Just lift it the same way." Technically, they're right. It's the same movement pattern, the same muscles, the same basic physics, but your body doesn't experience it as the same, does it? Every fiber is screaming danger signals. Your grip feels wrong. The weight distribution is alien. Your breathing changes completely. Your mind floods with what-ifs. What if I drop it? What if I hurt myself? What if I can't control it? And no matter how many times someone tells you it's just the same exercise, just heavier, your body isn't buying it. Your nervous system is in full alarm mode. That's exactly what happens when you scale trading capital. Your trading strategy, your exercise hasn't changed. The percentages are identical. 1% of 5,000 is $50. 1% of 50,000 is $500. Mathematically, proportionally, logically, it's the same risk. But your nervous system doesn't process it that way. It doesn't see percentages. It sees absolute numbers. And when those numbers cross a certain threshold, something primal gets activated in your brain. Your body experiences $50,000 at 1% risk as a completely different threat than $5,000 at 1% risk, even though the math is telling you they're equivalent. And here's the thing that most traders completely miss. You can't logic your way out of a somatic response. You can sit there with your calculator and your spreadsheet and repeat to yourself, it's just math. It's just percentages. Show less for 53, it's the same risk. But your thinking brain and your survival brain are speaking two completely different languages. Your thinking brain understands math. Your survival brain understands danger. And when there's a conflict between these two systems, guess which one wins? Every single time, the survival brain wins. Because your thinking brain is maybe 200,000 years old in evolutionary terms. Your survival brain, it's hundreds of millions of years old. It's been keeping organisms alive since before we had language, before we had logic, before we had the ability to calculate percentages, and it's not about to start trusting your math now. So what happens is this. You're sitting there staring at your screen, about to enter a $50,000 position. Your strategy is clear. Your setup is perfect. Everything you've learned tells you this is the trade. But your hands feel weird. Your breathing is shallow. There's this tightness in your chest or your stomach. And suddenly, out of nowhere, this voice whispers, "Something's wrong. Don't take this trade. It's not safe." And the voice is so visceral, so certain that you hesitate. Maybe you take a smaller position than you planned. Maybe you skip the trade entirely. Maybe you take the trade, but then bail out at the first sign of any movement against you, even though your stop loss is nowhere near being hit. And then what happens? You watch the trade work exactly as you predicted. It goes straight to your target without you. And you sit there feeling like an idiot, thinking, why can't I just execute my plan? What's wrong with me? But nothing's wrong with you. You're not weak. You're not undisciplined. You're experiencing a design feature of human consciousness doing exactly what it evolved to do. Your survival system detected unfamiliarity, interpreted it as threat, and overrode your conscious intentions to keep you safe. The problem is in trading. This safety mechanism doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you small. Let me take you somewhere else for a moment. I want you to picture two versions of yourself existing in parallel timelines. In timeline A, you slowly scaled from $10,000 to $100,000 over 2 years through perfect compounding. You followed your plan. You increased your position size gradually. You hit every target. You managed every loss. You lived through hundreds and hundreds of trading days, slowly growing your capital, slowly adjusting to bigger numbers, slowly normalizing what it feels like to have 5 figures in your account, then 6 figures. In timeline B, someone just handed you a $100,000 account tomorrow morning. Just boom, here's the money. Go trade it. Same strategy you've been using, same edge you've developed, same risk management rules. Everything's identical, except the starting capital. Now, I want you to really think about this. Which version of you feels more capable? Which one can actually use that capital effectively? Obviously, timeline A, right? But here's what I need you to understand. Timeline A didn't get better at trading over those 2 years. The strategy didn't change. The edge didn't improve. The technical skills didn't magically level up. What changed was the identity. That version of you lived through hundreds of days of being someone who trades 6-figure accounts. They normalized it through repetition, through exposure, through accumulated proof that they belong at that level. Their nervous system learned day by day that 6 figures is safe, that 6 figures is normal, that 6 figures is just another number. Timeline B has the same technical skills, but none of the identity infrastructure. They're trying to operate machinery they've never touched in a body that doesn't believe it belongs there. And this is why most traders who get funded, accounts, or inheritance money, or sudden windfalls, or even just hit a lucky streak and jump up too fast. This is why they blow those accounts up. Not because they can't trade, not because they don't know what they're doing, but because they're trying to inhabit an identity they never built. They're trying to wear clothes that don't fit. And the discomfort of that misfit is so intense that their subconscious finds a way to resolve it. And the easiest way to resolve it, Give the money back. Return to what feels normal. So how do you build that identity without waiting 2 years? How do you close the gap between where you are and where you need to be without just grinding through time? That's where it gets interesting, and that's what we need to talk about now. Here's what's actually happening under the surface. Your brain has a survival system that's millions of years old, and it has one job: detect threats and keep you alive. This system doesn't care about your trading goals. It doesn't care about your financial freedom. It doesn't care about your dreams of being a professional trader. It cares about one thing: making sure you survive until tomorrow. And to do that job, it's constantly scanning your environment for anything that feels dangerous. Now, when you're trading small amounts of capital, this system is mostly quiet. It's not worried about $50 losses. $50 doesn't register as a survival threat. You might feel a little disappointed when you lose, a little happy when you win, but it's not activating your deep survival circuitry. But the moment your capital grows past a certain point, and that point is different for everyone, this system wakes up and it starts screaming. Not because you're in actual danger, not because anything real has changed about your trading, but because it interprets unfamiliarity as threat. Think about how your survival system works in regular life. If you're walking down a dark alley you've never been in before, your threat system activates, heart rate goes up, senses sharpen, you're on high alert. Is it because something bad is definitely going to happen? No. It's because your brain doesn't have enough data about this environment, so it defaults to caution. Unknown equals potential threat equals stay alert. The same mechanism is running in your trading. When you're operating at capital levels you've never experienced before, your brain doesn't evaluate that risk mathematically. It evaluates it relationally compared to what feels normal. A $500 loss when you've never lost more than $50, that's not just 1%. That's a rupture in your sense of reality. That's your brain saying, we've never been here before. We don't know if this is safe. We need to be extremely careful. And here's the paradox that most traders never understand. The safer you actually are, bigger capital, same percentage risk, more cushion to absorb losses, the more dangerous your brain feels. Because safety isn't determined by logic. It's determined by familiarity. Your biology is literally working against your success because it's trying to protect you from something that isn't actually a threat. Now, let me show you another layer of this. You have an invisible ceiling built from every belief you hold about who you are and what you're capable of. I call this your identity ceiling, and it's one of the most powerful forces in your entire trading career. Most traders bump against this ceiling and think they've hit a skill limit. They think, I guess I'm just not good enough to trade bigger size. I guess I need to learn more. I guess I need a better strategy. But they haven't hit a skill limit. They've hit an identity limit. Think about it like this. When you first started trading, you probably thought making $1,000 in a single day was insane, maybe impossible, maybe something only real traders could do. Then one day, you did it. You caught a good trade, everything worked perfectly, and you banked $1,000. And in that moment, something shifted. $1,000 stopped being this abstract, impossible number and became something real, something you'd actually done. And over time, if you kept doing it, $1,000 became normal. Not exciting, not scary, just normal. Not because you got smarter or developed some new skill, but because you updated your self-concept to include that possibility. You gave yourself permission to be someone who makes $1,000 in a day. Scaling works exactly the same way. You can't grow your capital faster than you can grow your sense of self. And this is where most traders get stuck, because they're trying to force their capital to grow, while their identity stays frozen in place. It's like trying to pour water into a glass that's already full. The water just spills over. Your account can't hold more than your identity can handle. And here's what's really tricky about this. Your identity ceiling isn't usually conscious. You don't wake up in the morning and think, today, I'm going to limit myself to $20,000 because that's all I believe I'm worth. It's way more subtle than that. It shows up in tiny decisions that seem rational in the moment. You take profit a little early because it might reverse. You skip a trade because the setup isn't quite perfect. You reduce your position size because I'm not feeling it today. Each individual decision seems reasonable, but when you zoom out and look at the pattern, you see what's really happening. You're unconsciously keeping yourself inside your comfort zone. You're maintaining your identity ceiling, and every single time you bump up against that ceiling and pull back, you're actually reinforcing it. You're sending a signal to your subconscious that says, this is the limit. This is as far as we go. And your subconscious says, okay, got it. I'll make sure we stay here where it's safe. Now here's something that's going to sound almost mystical, but I've watched this happen thousands of times, so I know it's real. Traders don't fail because they lack permission from the market. The market doesn't care about you. The market doesn't grant or withhold permission. Traders fail because they lack permission from themselves. Deep in your subconscious, there's a belief about what you're allowed to have. And I can't tell you where that belief came from for you specifically. Maybe it's based on your parents' income level. And somewhere in your childhood, you absorb the message that people like us don't have that kind of money. Maybe it's based on who you were in high school, the quiet kid, the screw-up, the one who never quite fit in. And some part of you still identifies with that version of yourself and thinks someone like me doesn't deserve this level of success. Maybe it's based on nothing rational at all. Maybe it's just a feeling, a sense, a vague discomfort with the idea of having significant wealth. But whatever the source, this belief operates like an invisible force field. You can push against it with discipline and effort and willpower. You can make temporary progress. But the moment you relax, the moment your conscious effort drops even a little bit, that force field snaps you back to your set point, back to what feels normal, back to what you unconsciously believe you're allowed to have. And this is why the standard advice about scaling, just increase your position size gradually. Just stay disciplined. Just follow your plan. This is why that advice doesn't work for most people. Because you're not dealing with a discipline problem. You're dealing with an identity problem. And you can't discipline your way out of an identity crisis. Different problem, different solution. So let me give you the technique that actually works. And it's going to sound weird, but stay with me because this is where the real transformation happens. Your body carries your identity, not just your mind. When you think the thought, I'm a $100,000 trader, but your body has only ever experienced $10,000 trading, there's a gap, a somatic gap. Your nervous system doesn't believe you. Doesn't matter how many affirmations you say. Doesn't matter how much you visualize success. If your body hasn't felt the actual sensation of trading at that level, your nervous system treats it as foreign territory. So what you have to do is teach your body new truth through sensation, not through thought. You have to physically rehearse the actions of larger trading in a way that your nervous system can learn from. This means clicking the mouse button for a $50,000 position, seeing the profit and loss swing by thousands of dollars, watching your account balance fluctuate in ranges that used to represent your entire net worth, and you have to let your body feel that experience in a safe container through visualization, through simulation, through paper trading at scale, until it becomes muscle memory, until your nervous system stops screaming danger and starts whispering normal. Because here's the mechanism that most people don't understand. Your body learns through repetition, not logic. You can't convince your nervous system with arguments. You can't reason with your survival brain. But you can bore it into acceptance. You can expose it to the same stimulus over and over and over again in a non-threatening context until it stops reacting, until it gets so used to seeing those numbers, feeling those sensations, experiencing those ranges of movement that it just shrugs and says, oh, this again. Yeah, I know this. This is fine. That's what timeline A in my earlier example did without knowing it. They scaled gradually so their body had time to adjust. Every small increase in position size was uncomfortable for a little while, then became normal, then became boring. And once it was boring, they could increase again. They weren't consciously doing somatic training, but that's effectively what was happening. Their nervous system was getting repeated exposure to slightly larger numbers, slightly bigger risks, slightly higher stakes, and it was learning through repetition that this was safe. What I'm telling you is that you can do show less 1849 this intentionally. You can compress the timeline. You don't have to wait 2 years for your body to catch up to your capital. You can train your nervous system the same way you train for any physical skill through deliberate repeated practice in a controlled environment. Now, let me show you something else that's critical to understand. Every trader has a specific number where they collapse. For some people, it's $25,000. For others, it's $250,000. For some people, it might be as low as $5,000. This number isn't random. It's not arbitrary. It's the exact point where your self-concept can't stretch anymore without breaking. It's where the gap between who you think you are and what you're actually doing becomes so wide that your psyche can't handle the tension. And the collapse doesn't look like panic. It doesn't look like obvious fear. It looks like self-sabotage. You start revenge trading. You ignore your rules. You take ridiculous risks that make no sense given your strategy. Or you take no risks at all. You freeze completely, unable to pull the trigger on anything. You might overtrade garbage setups while skipping the A+ opportunities. You might move your stop-loss in the middle of a trade. You might close winning positions way too early and hold losing positions way too long, which is the exact opposite of what you know you should do. And everyone around you, if they're watching, thinks you've lost discipline. They think you've gotten emotional. They think you're not following your plan. But that's not what's happening. What's actually happening is that you've hit the edge of your identity ceiling, and your subconscious is desperately, frantically trying to bring you back to something recognizable, back to something that matches your internal sense of who you are. And the fastest way to do that, lose money, give it back, return to your set point. It's not that you want to fail. It's not that you're afraid of success in some abstract way. It's that succeeding at that level creates an identity crisis. There's too much cognitive dissonance between, I'm the kind of person who struggles with money, and I just made $15,000 today. Your brain can't hold both of those truths at the problem the same time. So, it resolves the dissonance by changing your behavior until your results match your identity again. And here's the thing that should actually give you hope. Once you understand this mechanism, once you see it clearly, you can work with it instead of fighting against it. Because the question isn't how do I avoid collapsing? The question is how do I expand my collapse point before I reach it? How do I grow my identity ceiling in advance of my capital growth so that when the money arrives, I'm already the person who can hold it? So let me give you the practical steps. Not theory, not philosophy. Actual things you can do starting today that will begin to shift this. First thing, you need to find your invisible number. Right now, I want you to pause show less 2147 this video if you need to, and write down the answer to this question. What is the account size that makes your stomach tighten? Just thinking about trading it? Don't rationalize it. Don't round it to a nice number. Don't pick what you think you should be able to handle. Trust the first number that creates physical discomfort in your body. That's your current identity ceiling, not your skill ceiling, not your knowledge ceiling, your permission ceiling. The edge of what you currently believe your show less 2216 allowed to have and hold. Second, before your next trade, I want you to do something that's going to feel strange at first. Close your eyes and scan your body. Where do you feel activation? Is it in your chest, your stomach, your shoulders, your hands? Just notice. That's where your survival system lives. That's where the alarm bells are ringing. And I want you to name it out loud or in your head. I feel tightness in my chest. I feel butterflies in my stomach. My hands feel shaky. Don't try to change it. Don't try to make it go away. Don't tell yourself you shouldn't feel that way. Just witness it. Just acknowledge that it's there. This practice teaches you something critical. It teaches you to distinguish between danger signals and growth signals. Most traders can't tell the difference. So they treat all discomfort as danger. They feel their heart rate increase, and they think something is wrong with this trade. I need to get out. But sometimes that discomfort isn't telling you something's wrong with the trade. It's telling you something's unfamiliar about the trade. It's telling you you're at the edge of your comfort zone, and edges are where growth happens. But you have to learn to read your body's signals correctly, and that starts with simply noticing them without immediately reacting. Third, I want you to stop thinking about scaling as jumping from one level to another. Don't try to go from 10,000 to 100,000. Instead, ask yourself this question: who would I need to become to comfortably trade 15,000? Not what would I need to do, who would I need to be? What beliefs would that person hold? How would that person talk to themselves after a loss? What would that person's relationship with money look like? Maybe they'd be more patient. Maybe they'd be less attached to being right on every trade. Maybe they'd be someone who sees money as a tool rather than a measure of their worth as a human being. And then here's the key: practice being that person in your current trades. You don't have to wait until you have 15,000 to become the $15,000 version of yourself. You can start embodying those characteristics right now, today, with whatever capital you're currently trading. You're not scaling capital. You're scaling identity in small, manageable increments. You're trying on the next version of yourself and living in it until it becomes your new normal. Fourth, every single morning before you look at charts, I want you to spend 5 minutes in vivid, detailed visualization. Not vague daydreaming, not wishful thinking, specific sensory-rich rehearsal. You're entering your target position size. Let's say it's $50,000. See the exact screen in front of you. See your trading platform. See the order ticket. Feel your hand on the mouse. Feel your finger clicking the button. See the position appear in your account. See the profit and loss start to move. Watch it swing up $1,000, down $800, up $1,500, down $1,200. And here's the critical part. Practice feeling bored, not excited, not scared, bored. Because that's what mastery actually feels like. Elite performers aren't thrilled by their craft. They're calmly competent. A surgeon doing their Hunt heart surgery isn't pumped up with adrenaline. They're focused and steady because they've done it so many times it's just another day at work. That's what you're training your nervous system to feel. You're training it to find safety in the mundane, not in the dramatic. You're teaching it that a $50,000 position is just another trade, just another click, just another day. And I know this sounds like it's not going to work. I know it sounds too simple or too weird or too much like the manifestation stuff you see all over social media. But this isn't manifestation. This isn't the law of attraction. This is neuroscience. Your brain rewires based on what you repeatedly expose it to. Every time you vividly imagine an experience, your brain creates neural pathways as if you'd actually had that experience. Athletes use this technique. Musicians use this technique. Military special forces use this technique. It's how humans learn to perform under pressure without falling apart. And it works in trading exactly the same way it works everywhere else. The difference between a trader who can scale and a trader who can't isn't talent. It's not intelligence. It's not even discipline, really. It's that the trader who can scale has somehow, either accidentally through gradual exposure or deliberately through practices like the ones I'm describing, taught their nervous system that larger capital is safe. That's it. That's the whole secret. Their body doesn't freak out when the numbers get big because their body has been trained to recognize those numbers as normal. And here's what's beautiful about understanding this. It means you're not broken. It means there's nothing wrong with you. It means that every time you've struggled to scale, every time you've sabotaged your own success, every time you felt that sick feeling in your stomach as your account grew, you weren't experiencing weakness. You weren't proving you weren't cut out for this. You were experiencing a completely normal, completely predictable biological response to unfamiliar territory. Your survival system was doing its job. It was just doing a job that isn't helpful in this particular context. The solution isn't to override your survival system. You can't. It's too old, too powerful, too deeply wired into your being. The solution is to retrain it, to teach it a new definition of safe, to expand its comfort zone gradually and deliberately until it includes the level of capital you want to trade. And once you understand that this is the actual work, not learning more patterns, not finding a better strategy, not developing more discipline, but literally reprogramming your nervous system's threat response, then everything changes because now you're working on the right problem. Most traders spend years working on the wrong problem. They think they need to fix their strategy, when really they need to fix their relationship with success. They think they need to learn more, when really they need to unlearn the limiting beliefs they're carrying about who they're allowed to become. They think they need to push harder, when really they need to give themselves permission to expand. And permission is such a strange thing, isn't it? Because nobody can give it to you. The market can't give you permission. Your broker can't give you permission. I can't give you permission. It has to come from inside. You have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am allowed to have this. I am allowed to hold this level of capital. I am allowed to make this kind of money. Not because I'm special, not because I'm better than anyone else, just because I've decided that I'm ready to become the version of myself that can handle it. And that decision, that permission, doesn't happen all at once in some big, dramatic moment. It happens in tiny increments. Every time you follow your plan when you're scared, you give yourself a little more permission. Every time you take a full-size position according to your rules, even though your stomach is churning, you prove to yourself that you can handle discomfort. Every time you hold a winning trade to your actual target instead of bailing out early, you expand your sense of what you're capable of. You're building evidence. You're creating a case file in your own mind that says, I am someone who can do this. And your subconscious, which is very literal and very concrete, looks at that evidence and starts to believe it. Not because you've convinced it with logic, but because you've shown it with actions. You've demonstrated through behavior that you are in fact the kind of person who can handle larger capital. And once your subconscious believes it, once your identity catches up to your ambition, scaling stops being a fight. It stops being this thing you have to force through sheer willpower. It just becomes the next natural step. So, let's bring this all together. Let's land this plane. Here's the journey we just took. You came into this video thinking that scaling was about position sizing, about risk management, about maybe having more discipline or better emotional control. But what you discovered is that scaling is about something far more fundamental than any of that. It's about your capacity to hold a new version of yourself without reverting back to who you used to be. You learn that your brain has this ancient threat detection system that interprets unfamiliar capital as danger, even when mathematically you're actually safer. You discover that you have an identity ceiling, this invisible limit on what you unconsciously believe you're allowed to have, and that every plateau you hit is showing you exactly where that ceiling currently sits. You learned that the collapse point, that moment where traders self-destruct, isn't about losing discipline. It's about hitting the edge of their self-concept and their subconscious, frantically trying to pull them back to something recognizable. Most importantly, you learn that the solution isn't more willpower. It's not grinding harder. It's not studying more patterns or finding some secret strategy. The solution is systematically expanding your sense of self to match your ambitions. It's retraining your nervous system through repeated exposure. It's giving yourself permission in tiny increments to become someone you don't currently recognize. Someone who can hold weight without crumbling. Someone who can see $50,000 the same way they currently see $5,000, as just another number, just another trade, just another day at work. You walked in here thinking you needed to fix your trading, but what you're walking out with is the understanding that you need to rewrite your relationship with who you're allowed to become. That's the real work. That's what separates the traders who break through from the traders who stay stuck forever. It's not technical skill. It's identity architecture. And I want you to hear this. Really hear this. You are not being stopped by the market. You are being stopped by an outdated version of yourself that's trying to protect you from a threat that doesn't exist. Your job isn't to fight that version of yourself. You can't win that fight. Your job is to grow so far beyond it that it can no longer reach you. You have to become so different, so expanded, that your old identity can't snap you back anymore because there's nothing to snap back to. You're someone new now. You are allowed to succeed. I don't care what your parents made. I don't care what happened in your past. I don't care what kind of student you were, or what your first boss said about you, or any story you've been carrying about why you're not the kind of person who gets to have this kind of success. Those stories are just that, stories. They're not truth. They're not destiny. They're just patterns of thought that you've repeated so many times they feel like reality. But you can change them, not through positive thinking or affirmations, but through action, through evidence, through becoming someone who behaves differently until your identity has no choice but to catch up. You are allowed to scale. You are allowed to become unrecognizable to the person you were yesterday. You are allowed to look back at your old self in 6 months or a year and think, wow, I used to struggle with numbers that now feel completely normal to me. That's not betraying who you are. That's not becoming fake or losing yourself. That's growth. That's evolution. That's what you're here to do. So, if something in this video shifted your understanding even slightly, even just a crack in the ceiling you didn't know you had, I want to know about it. Hit that like button. Not for the algorithm, but so I know this landed with you, so I know this resonated. Because when you click that button, you're telling me, yes, this is what I needed to hear. Yes, this explains something I've been feeling but couldn't name. And leave a comment. Tell me, what's your invisible number? Where do you feel your identity's ceiling right now? What's the account size that makes your stomach tighten when you think about trading it? I read every single comment that comes through, and your honesty, your vulnerability, your willingness to name these things out loud, that creates permission for other people to do the same. We're all carrying these invisible ceilings. We're all bumping up against identity limits. And when you're willing to say it out loud, when you're willing to admit where you're actually struggling, you make it easier for everyone else to do the same. And if you want more of this, if you want to keep doing this real psychological work, instead of just learning more surface-level tactics, subscribe to this channel, because I'm not here to teach you candlestick patterns. I'm not here to sell you some secret indicator. I'm here to help you become the version of yourself that no longer needs to fight your own mind. The version of yourself that can execute with clarity, because you've done the inner work to match your external ambitions. Now go rewrite your ceiling. Go train your nervous system. Go give yourself permission to become someone you don't yet recognize. Your future is waiting on the other side of that permission.